Welcome to Salzburg. I'm your local guide, Michaela. I would like to invite you on a walk through Salzburg to follow the traces of the famous musician Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. So let's get started. Here we are at one of the most famous places of Salzburg. In the shopping street Getreidegasse is the yellow building, the Mozart Museum. This is where Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was born in January 27 in 1756. He spent his childhood here and most of his youth as well. His parents lived here even for 26 years. Leopold Mozart and Anna Maria Pertl had then 7 children in 8 years, but only Amadeus and his sister Nanna stayed alive. The father, Leopold, was their teacher. He taught them piano from early years on. He himself studied the violin and also worked as a conductor, composer, and a music teacher. Soon it was clear that Amadeus had an extraordinary talent for music. And the father left a note on a minuet and a little piece of music one day. It says, shortly before his 5th birthday, Amadeus played a complete piano piece for the first time in his life. And his father proudly recorded that it took him only half an hour to learn. The parents rented a 4-room apartment in the 3rd floor of this building. But since the 19th century, the whole building has been turned into a museum. And when you come to visit, you can even see the violin of Amadeus that he played when he was 6 years old. I'm here in front of the Salzburg Dome. This church was designed in the early Italian style, Baroque style, by the Italian architect Sanzino Solari. Now we're here inside the Salzburg Cathedral, where Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was baptized. And here is the baptismal font. The lid is contemporary art from Toni Schneider-Mansell. He had made the lid in 1958 approximately out of bronze. But during Mozart's time, there was no lid. And so his body was put underwater. He was baptized with a long name. His full name is Johannes Chrysostomus Wolfgangus Theophilus Mozart. I hope you remember that name. Later in his life, he played the organ in this church, and he wrote about 20 mass compositions. One of it is the well-known Coronation Mass from 1779. The old residence, it is a place of princely representation between the 16th century until 1803. After many centuries or years of uncertainty, Salzburg finally became part of Austria in 1816. But that means that Salzburg was not part of Austria during Mozart's time. Today, the residence is one of the most important historic valuable buildings in the old town. It has approximately 180 rooms, and 15 of them are staterooms that are used as a museum, and you can visit them or also enjoy special events there. The former Prince Archbishop Paris Lodron founded the University of Salzburg in 1623, and it was the place where Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart performed in his early years. For example, when he was about 5 years old, he was a dancer at the drama Sigismund Hungariae Rex. This unique Baroque church by the architect Johann Bernhard Fischer von Erlach became part of the university in 1707. It is used many times for concerts with Mozart's music throughout the year. Among other things, this church was constructed and financed by the profits from pepper trade. Next to us now is the Salzburg Festival Hall, a long building which we use for our classical music events, especially during the summer season. In the mid-17th century, up to 180 horses were trained here for battle and entertainment. And since the early 20th century, the same building is used for classical performances. Every year, for several weeks during the summer season, Salzburg becomes the hub of the cultural world. Thousands of people enjoy opera, theater, and concert performances from famous international stars. And for Mozart's 25th birthday anniversary, all 22 of his operas were performed here in one season. I'm standing here in the middle of the Makart Square. Hans Makart was a painter who was born here in the 19th century. I'm surrounded by beautiful magnolia trees which bloom in April. And behind me you can find a modern sculpture called Caldera, and just behind that sculpture, in contrast, the Baroque Trinity Church. But besides that, we also find a house that is referred to the dancing master's house on this side. Today it is called Mozart's Wohnhaus or Mozart's Residence. In 1773, the Mozart family finally decided to move into a bigger apartment. The Mozart Wohnhaus offered sufficient space for meetings and entertainment with their friends. And one of their friends was the famous theater director Emanuel Schikaneder. He also later wrote the libretto for the opera The Magic Flute. And this opera became one of the most famous operas of Amadeus Mozart nowadays. One of the oldest arch-abbeys in the German-speaking countries is right in the heart of Salzburg's old town, and it is called the St. Peter's Abbey. The center of the abbey is the church St. Peter's. It was founded in the 7th century by Bishop Rupert. In the 12th century it was consecrated and many pieces are still existing today. But over the centuries the abbey was renovated several times. For example, the tower was decorated with windows, with arches, and also the onion-shaped dome. It was finished in 1756, exactly the year when Amadeus was born. After more than 1.5 years in Vienna, Amadeus Mozart traveled with his wife Constanze to Salzburg. He wanted to visit his father and his sister. During that time, he also performed his C minor Mass at the St. Peter's Church. It happened in 1783, and his wife Constanze sang the soprano part. I'm here at the Mozart Square, standing in front of Mozart's statue. The statue was finally finished in September 1842 and represents the great composer. You can see him standing on a pedestal, wearing a skirt and a long coat. His left foot is on a rock, symbolizing home. In his left hand he holds a scroll, and in his right hand he holds a pen. The allegories on the pedestal symbolize Mozart's work for church, for concerts, for chamber music and operas. We're in front of the International Mozarteum Foundation. This organization dedicates to research and cultivate the work of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart and his family. And on the facade of the building there is an inscription designed by the artist Sylvie Fleury. She made it for the first Dialogue Festival in 2005. It is a neon writing that lights up at night, and it is based on a manuscript by Mozart, which it repeats the sentence: "I want to have everything that is good, genuine and beautiful." The association was founded in 1818 by the citizens of the city of Salzburg and is called International Mozarteum Foundation. The organization's job is to make Mozart's music, his life and his personality accessible to all people and generations. Let's have a look at the modern sculpture. It is an homage of Mozart and it was made by the famous German artist Markus Lüpertz. Lüpertz wants to express Amadeus as a genius, as a musical talent, but also as someone between completion and fragment. Lüpertz chose this square, which is bounded by the Monks Mountain and also the Salzach River as a location. It is a church that was built and finished in 1705 and is consecrated to Saint Marcus. Thank you for joining me on this walk through Salzburg. Hopefully I brought a bit of Mozart's spirit to you. And when you come to visit, I'll be happy to show you all these places in person.
Now that the tour is over, let's watch a few funny moments.
The apartment at the Mozart house offered suspicious And the celebration, but it probably was somebody.
Oh. Oh.